So I'm going to speak a little bit today about Belarus-Sweden relations.
I gromcze.
Gromcze, okay. So I'm going to speak about Belarus-Sweden relations, just to give you like very quick overview, historical overview, and just probably some considerations, some thoughts around this issue. So as Andrew mentioned, I'm a PhD candidate, but I do not share it between BSU and UCL. I did my master's here at CIS, and I'm currently officially a PhD candidate in Minsk, in Belarusian State University. So just to say what I will be focusing in this presentation is just be very quick historical overview and more about political and diplomatic relations after 1991, because why I wanted to specify this. So my overall PhD is about political, economic, and social-cultural relations, but today I decided to speak mainly about main events in the diplomatic relations. Needed to say that the relationships between Belarus and Sweden, and so what we see now as like the territory of modern territory of Sweden and modern territory of Belarus. So I'll be referring to basically to Belarus and Sweden, keeping in mind these definitions. We have like a long history of relationships. I would say that it all started in 9th-10th century when the Vikings were traveling along the rivers and were setting up their villages. So it's like it was a trade route very known from the Varangians to the Greeks, and the Swedish families were believed to set up their communities, their villages, and to have some influence over the territories which is now modern Belarus. After that, it was kind of important event in the history of Belarus and Sweden. It was a union in 1655 when officially Belarus and Sweden. When Belarus and Sweden were kind of united into one state. This union was live only 1 year in 1655, but still we can say that once upon a time we were one state. Then the history is about wars. Swedes were passing by the territory of Belarus, naming different towns, cities, villages, and on the slides you can see the kind of the entrance or the end of the village in Belarus called Swedes. Basically, like the direct translation is Swedes, which says a lot about this toponymic kind of relationships. Then we are jumping into the 20th century, and I think it was quite an interesting point in time when the Belarusian, the guy who fled, who was forced to Norway and then fled to Sweden, he settled down in Sweden and established the community, the Belarusian community in Sweden, which was active in 1948, 1975. But unfortunately, when he died, all activities stopped. And coming closer to the kind of my period, so in September 1990 in Ronneby, Sweden, Belarus was presented for the first time as an independent state. And then later in the first Belarusian foreign minister said that it was the debut of all our diplomacy there in Sweden, in Ronneby. And now we are in post-Soviet period. So officially, Sweden recognized Belarus on 19 December 1991. It was claimed that Sweden was the first country to recognize Belarus, but it is not confirmed because officially Turkey recognized the independence of all Soviet post-Soviet, formerly Soviet countries in one go, like as a batch recognition. So it's kind of like it's a problem whether Sweden was the first or whether Sweden was not the first country to recognize Belarus. Anyway, 1 month later, diplomatic relations were established. That was during the official visit of Swedish delegation in Minsk, headed by the Minister of Foreign Affairs of Sweden, Margaret af Ugglas. Piotr Kravchenko signed for the Belarusian side. And it was proclaimed that, now we are going to establish very nice relationships, we're going to cooperate and so on and so forth. But unfortunately, the intention to set up diplomatic mission was live only in 1999, in November, when Belarus opened its diplomatic presence in Stockholm, and the first ambassador was Oleg Yermolovich. Sweden fulfilled its desire to be present in Minsk in 2000, and in 2003 the full embassy was opened in Minsk, and the ambassador was appointed, who was very famous in Belarus for his activities in relation to human rights issues and just general in relation to Belarusization. It was Stefan Eriksson, quite famous in Belarus. And then we come to the most interesting episode in the Belarusian Swedish modern relations. It's teddy bear incident, which happened in 2012 when the representatives of Swedish PR agency dropped teddy bears over Belarus. That was exactly the second day after the Independence Day of Belarus. It was a huge scandal, which resulted basically in that diplomatic relations deteriorated to the point when both countries closed their representations, their offices in Minsk and in Stockholm, and relationships were halted, and it was like a true political crisis between two countries. Anyway, Sweden was the first who decided to try to move forward and try to mend this hole in the relationships, and at this point of time, it was 2013, Martin Åberg was appointed as chargé d'affaires, and it was pronounced that he will be looking to boost economic relations rather than political relations, and the focus of the cooperation, so to speak, was shifted from political kind of development and human rights development to primarily economic development. And this is something Belarus was happy about, because from the very beginning Belarus was very clear that we are interested in economic relationships and boosting our economy rather than in promoting human rights in Belarus. So the relationships between Belarus and Sweden warmed up, and last year the Belarusian embassy was reopened in Stockholm, and Dmitry Mironchuk was appointed as the ambassador. That's the quick. This was a quick overview. So now I would like to give you main characteristics and challenges, and I'm sure that's something for discussion afterwards. So I think that the main characteristic of the bilateral relations is that they are very unstable. They have been, and they are very unstable and turbulent. So countries faced many instabilities due to political situation in Belarus. So first one was after Lukashenko elections, re-elections, and referendum. Then sanctions situation, then teddy bears, and so on and so forth. So the relationships are very unstable, but they continue to exist, to evolve at some point. And secondly, it was always around politics against economy. As I said, Belarus was very focused on development its economic base, economic relationships, and was trying to avoid this difficult topics around human rights, for instance, whereas Sweden was trying to push these issues forward. But unfortunately, we can see after the teddy bear accident that the Belarus's position won, and at the moment we see that they stick to this economic formula of development of their relations. Also, as a characteristic, I would say that it was very low level of political engagement. So the first visit of Swedish delegation when they signed the agreement about diplomatic relations was like the highest level of representation ever seen in the relationships. After that, the relations were kept on the levels of the clerks of the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, but it's never been ministers level visiting Belarus or Sweden. Although when it was the warm-up of the relationships, the foreign minister of Belarus and Sweden met at the outskirts of the forum. And another kind of characteristics is that Sweden is kind of very well known in Belarus, whereas Belarus is not known in Sweden at all. Having said that, Sweden is known in Belarus, I mean that so many people know about Sweden, try to go to Sweden, are interested in Swedish culture and Swedish language. There are many universities in Belarus who offer Swedish language for the students, and students are willing to learn Swedish. In Sweden, obviously, very low interest, and I know in Södertörn University they tried to open a course about the history of Belarus and CIS countries, and it was live for 1 year, and it was closed because of low interest in it at all. So it was attended during the first month by the Ministry of Foreign Affairs representatives, but later on, like, very low interest, and it was closed. Overall, so why does Sweden bother? Why does Sweden bother to be in Belarus, to try to do something in Belarus? To be honest, I don't have like a definite answer, but I think that one of the explanation can be that Sweden considers Belarus a part of Baltic Sea region, and so trying to be the leader in this region is trying to influence as much as Sweden can, and to do something in Belarus. And also in connection to this Baltic Sea region. So Sweden has done so much for Baltic states, for the independence of Baltic states, and Belarus being like the nearest neighbor of Baltic states. So it's trying probably to exercise some influence over the territory of Belarus. And probably it's hoping that if the situation changes in Belarus, they will be just right there and ready to go and to do something. And second factor is obviously Russia. I would put it as just as opportunity. So as colleague Knilvila said, that Sweden sort of understand Belarus. It's like it's like a small territory. It's kind of understandable country, and unlike Russia, something can be changed. So I think that Sweden does really bother because of the thought that something can change at some point of time. is Belarus happy about relationships with Sweden? I think yes. It's gaining international attention from an EU country, and it's kind of this Belarus issue is discussed on the international arena now and then. So it's good because overall the interest in Belarusian affairs is quite low internationally. And secondly, due to Sweden, thanks to Sweden and Poland, Belarus has been invited to the Eastern Partnership, which opens opportunities for Belarus to develop its ties with EU, trade, economic development, business investments. So Belarus is definitely a winner. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you, Elizaveta.